On screen, she has an amazing presence, from her early work in Bugsy Malone and Taxi Driver to her defining role as Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs. She's now winning praise for her work behind the camera as a director, so it is a real pleasure to welcome Jodie Foster. Jodie, hello. Let's hug it out. You're doing so good. Jodie, it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
David, I know you're a big film fan. You love Jodie's work, I'm sure.
Yes, and I was very, very starstruck because I met her before on Chris Evans' breakfast show.
Oh, yeah.
We did.
What a broadcaster. I was really, really starstruck. I mean, how can you not be? Because
you know,
iconic person.
Well, we'll give her a chance to speak then.
But this is the thing. I do these shows with, you know, a bunch of British people together, and they all have this like. There's like a whole thing you guys do.
I can go off people, you know, when they do that.
But if I was surrounded by a bunch of Americans, I'm sure we could talk like Joe Pesci.
Hey, I have. I won't give you this. I mean, you can have it if you want, but I know I would. No, I'm saying I would give it to you.
Yeah.
But I know that your children are pretty grown up now. They're too old for this, I would have thought.
Yeah, they'd be really mad at me if I gave them that.
How old are your boys?
19 and 16.
Wow.
But, you know, you hit 25 and then they want to read it again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or they might have kids and then you can palm it off on the
That's true.
grandchildren.
Oh, look, there's a picture.
Okay. Well, fine-looking young men, handsome young men there. And do they watch your movies? I guess they couldn't see some of them early on, but...
Early on, they couldn't watch them and they were completely uninterested. Yeah, they have no interest in watching my movies. Now things have changed a little bit. Now they're a little more into it.
The reason why I was asking you about what kind of parent you are, of course, that ties into the episode of Black Mirror, which you have just directed. Now, I don't know how many Black Mirror fans we have. It wasn't Channel 4, it's now on Netflix. Just an amazing accomplishment. Your episode is to do with the nature of the parent-child relationship, of course.
Yes. Well, every Black Mirror is different, as you know, all around the theme of technology, but each one of them is a standalone feature.
But it's got a lot to do with parents and their involvement in their children's lives and their fears for what might happen to their children.
Yeah, well, fear is everything, as we know. I mean, that's the whole television show. But I do think that, you know, I was raised by a single mom, and she was amazing, and we had a really complicated and deep relationship, and but it was also a struggle. And so this film kind of reflects that, from the birth of the child all the way to when when she has to say goodbye.
Let's have a look at the clip. This is Black Mirror. It's one of my favourite TV shows, and this is a great episode. Have a look. They've got a reaction there immediately for that. And also, it's a tremendous performance you get from that young actress in it. How old is this young girl in this?
Well, there's 3 children that actually, there's 4 little girls. The one of them was, you know, had a lot of energy, and it was tough going. It was tough going.
So
I would say, can you just sit there and can you say hello, Mom? And she'd go, what if I do this? Yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
But of course, you were acting at that age yourself, weren't you? What was your first? What's the first role you remember as a child when you were working as an actor? What's the first one?
I think my first commercial was a Coppertone ad.
That's like a sun cream, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how old were you then?
I think I was 3. Yeah, I was about 3.
Wow. And so, and it's an interesting thing, because to have worked in the business for that long, you must have a fairly unique perspective of it.
Yeah, I'm bored. No, I love movies, but 52 years in the film business is a long time.
Well, that's amazing. That's an amazing career. And still alive, ladies and gentlemen.
Still alive. Still kicking.
But is that one of the reasons why you stepped away from acting somewhat? I know you are still acting, but you've...
You know, I get burned out, and it's a long time to do one thing. And I do think that directing has become an evolution from the acting. It was the best film school in the world. You know, worked with amazing directors, and you know, Spike Lee, Martin Scorsese, and Alan Parker. I mean, just really amazing directors. So
working with Scorsese, and you were what, 14 when you did?
12.
12.
Yeah, 12. Oh, actually, Alice doesn't live here anymore when I was 10. So.
Wow. So working with Scorsese there, I mean, did you learn from him even at that age? Were you looking at how he directed, or was it more just getting through the experience?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think what I learned from him is the enthusiasm. I mean, he was always, you know, behind the camera, laughing and telling you to do it again, and you know, you could tell how much he loved films. Robert De Niro, on the other hand, was Robert De Niro.
Well, De Niro is a unique and strange man.
Yes, he is. He does not have a lot to say.
No.
Yeah. He's kind of an empty book. That's what makes him a wonderful. It's what makes him a wonderful actor.
He is. I've met him briefly.
I'm sure you've interviewed him.
Well, it's hard to get an answer out of him.
Yeah, you don't get much, do you? Yeah,
There's
I know.
a story. He was one of the producers of the Queen musical, We Will Rock You. And he was at a press conference with the members of Queen. They said, "Oh, Mr. De Niro, do you have a favourite Queen song?" "No." Did you just say Bohemian Rhapsody or Radio Gaga and make it up?
But you know what? It's memorable. I bet that was a memorable interview.
It
and you
was
see their interview with me, you don't remember.
Well, no, I did remember
I don't
interviewing
remember.
you. Oh, wow.
I mean...
It was a long time ago. Well, here's what I want to ask you about that interview. I interviewed Jodie in 1991. A long time ago.
Oh, look at it.
Wow, look at
your
the two
hair.
of us. So, I asked you at the time, I think Silence of the Lambs had just come out. And was obviously a hit already, but you went on to an Academy Award and the film did amazingly well. And I asked you at the time, I said, well, if they make a sequel, would you care to be involved? And you said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then when they made a sequel, and they presumably asked you, you said...
I wasn't available. Yeah, I wasn't available.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You just weren't available.
Nope.
Wow, she's like talking to De Niro. You know, even here, taken out of context like that has a power.
The atmosphere is dread about the scene, isn't it? It's so...
I guess.
It affects you on such a deep level.
Can you remember, did you do that one take? Did you do several takes? And how did you prepare for a scene like that?
Actually, the funny thing is you know, that that last part where somebody's phone rang. It was the beginning of cell phones, and people hadn't really figured out, like, oh, I have to turn them off when I come to set, and somebody's cell phone rang during that whole end of that take, and they had to figure out how to cut it out. But you know, you're an actor, you don't really have a choice. So you have to do that thing while the phone is going, wee, wee, wee.
So you carried on through the phone?
Well, yeah, that's why we get the big bucks.
Yeah. Let's hope it was an important call. But let's talk about the films you made before that. 'Cause
Sure.
You worked for Disney for a while.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I've always wanted to ask you, and I've read this, I know it's entirely true, is you made a film called Napoleon and Samantha.
Yes.
This was in 1972, I believe.
Okay.
And you were co-starring, or certainly one of the performers in it, was a lion.
Yes.
And the lion got quite friendly with you.
Yeah. I was the end of a scene, the end of a take. The lion was kind of they were trying to get him to do stuff, and he was being pulled by a little wire, like a tiny little thin wire that you couldn't see. And I was in front of him, and he came around me. I remember seeing his mane. He came around me, and he picked me up by the hip and turned me around and shook me around. And I was sideways, and I remember thinking, oh, this is an earthquake. And then I just kept seeing people fleeing.
So they were running away?
They were running away from me.
They weren't running to help?
No, they were running away, and they were taking their equipment with them. And then I guess what I was told is that somebody yelled, drop it. The trainer yelled, drop it, and the lion was, you know, acquiesced and went, drop. They dropped me.
Wow.
I went running down, I went falling down a hill, kind of as like a little ravine, and then the lion came up from behind me and then smacked me on the side of my leg and stood there with one paw on me, like, kind of like, I got this bird, you know.
So like you were a little mouse the cat was playing with?
Yeah, I don't know if he was really... Yes, he was playing, because if he'd really wanted to kill me, that would have been
You would
easy.
not be here today.
I would not be here today.
I'd be forced to interview De Niro.
Yeah. Yes, that is true. That's what happens.
But that's an amazing anecdote to have, that you were picked up and shook by a lion.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like it's a telling moment in my narrative, is that, you know, I sort of dusted myself off and came out of the hospital, and then went and worked with the lion again.
Came back. You carried on working with that lion?
Yeah. I worked with that lion. One day I had a rooster, because I worked with the rooster as well, and the rooster was squawking and doing something, and I saw the lion just like look at me and look at the rooster in that way, and I threw the rooster and ran.
So you'd learned from the film crew how to behave,
yeah.
You know, you mentioned your mum earlier. She was obviously a big, raising you as a single parent, but obviously a big factor in your career as well. She would have got you into the business, I guess. Did she help choose those early roles, or did you have a joint share in that decision?
I think it was pretty much all her. I think at, you know, 5 years old or 6 years old, it was definitely her. And as time went on, I think I learned a little bit more who I was as an actor. But yeah, and when we talk about my Black Mirror episode that I just directed, it is very much about a mother-daughter relationship, and that kind of beautiful and troubling symbiotic bond between the two. And, you know, I feel like that has a lot of personal relevance to my own life.
And your mum's still alive, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
And are you still close?
We're very close. She's not really with us in the mind, but she has dementia, but I think she is very content in her life. She watches a lot of movies, and she eats a lot of food. So those are two things that she always loved.
Well, they're two of my life goals.
Yeah.
So that's great. Well, she's comfortable, and
Yes.
Does she know you? Does she recognise you still, though? Does she know you're still there?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. And that's hard and also really beautiful, I think, to be able to know that at the end of your parents' life that you're there for them and you're the last face that they will ever see. I mean, it's a gift, you know. They gave you this tremendous gift, and you get to give that back to them over the course of their life, and that's, you know, I think it's a wonderful thing too. It's painful, but it's wonderful.
That's a lovely way of looking at it. That's a really beautiful way. So I need to ask you though, you haven't given up acting entirely.
Well, not yet.
Well, here, you're one of those faces I know. I know if you're in a movie, I'm going to enjoy at least that part of it.
Well, that's nice. Well, that's why I work so little, because it's hard to find things that move you. I'm really excited about acting in my 70s. I think there's some crack-ass roles for women in their 70s, and I'm gonna have all the wrinkles and stuff, so I'm gonna get all of them. And yeah, I'm gonna be like, you know, the junkie grandma next door. That's going to be me.
I'm signing up for that one right now. But you mentioned, you know, roles for women in movies. Of course, at the moment, the topic of gender in Hollywood, of men and women in Hollywood, couldn't be more out there, especially with all this Weinstein stuff going on.
Right.
Did you encounter any of that kind of behaviour?
I don't think, I mean, you got a lot of women in this audience. I think it would be very difficult to find any woman in this audience that hasn't had some brush with, you know, with inappropriate sexual stuff happening in the workplace. It happens in every industry, and whether it's the Supreme Court in the United States or the presidency or, you know, the guy next door, men, women, old, you know, young, it is everywhere. And this is a moment of consciousness in the world, and I think that's a watershed moment that we should all pay attention to, that there are places and there are people that you can talk to. And watching these, listening to these amazing narratives by really smart, interesting, accomplished women, not just talking about some, you know, pig in a bathrobe, but really talking about what it is to be raised as a woman and how small brushes that you have with being demoralized and being put upon and debased in the workplace have such effect. And I think it's a great time for people to become conscious.
So lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you direct more, but I'm really looking forward to seeing you back on screen as an actor, because I love.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Jodie Foster. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.